It's okay. Off your mind, it's okay. Off your mind,
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don't off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go summer us, call them hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don't come. Ingo torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people where they spoil our country. So my people make we laugh, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not the off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Can in the touchlight every corner, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Okay, some people be they holla say they want the power. Chai, them be promise us say we go get light and power. Them hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. See them talk say make we off mind, but thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not they off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Person where they do evil, no one make person talk. Them say that Maiyegun, that man too they talk. He too they talk. Say Maiyegun diary, he they hot like pepper. But every day then they take money in bulk. Poor man picking, they the street they hawk. Still them talk say make we no talk. But thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make you shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This man not the off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo.
Hello there.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ la mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Good morning to you, good afternoon to you, and good evening to you from wherever you're watching from. This is Maiyegun live.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary.
Have the guys here. Hello, how are you?
Fine, sir.
Okay, 500, over 500 naira. Are you willing to pay?
I can't pay it, sir. It's too cost, sir. It's too cost.
But you look like you have money.
I don't have any money, sir. Since last night I sleep here. Since yesterday evening I was here. And I can't have that such of money, sir.
Sorry, huh?
Yes, sir.
Things are going to get better in Nigeria.
All right.
Say
sir.
amen.
Amen.
Okay. Well, Rotus, he has said amen, so we are hoping that things will get better. But I tell you, nobody's willing to pay. Okay, you have 500 naira to pay for fuel.
Oh, God. Me, I be a driver. I know if you pay 500 naira, how much I go come the carry person? Why? I know if you pay 500 naira, what 550 when they talk, I know if you pay them. Because the price is too much. I bet my president, Tinubu, begin to do something about this price when they talk. I beg. I don't take up beg Tinubu, make it do something. I don't dare here since day before yesterday. My buy for to drive my again so that I go feed the carry passenger. I no fit. To buy water for us on Jerican. No way to buy water. All the poor people where they sell water 2029. They say no water, say no way to buy to take on generator to pump the water. I never have. Since just did I never bath.
You never bath?
You know the just smell. You know the just smell from my body.
Wait, you the smell?
I the smell.
Then come out for ya.
I want to come on one by
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. Thank you. No worry, you go get what I.
And yes, we like you. Glory YouTube. And yes, we like you.
Thank you so much. Share this broadcast. Invite your friends. Invite your not so friendly friends. Subsidy remover. You they smell. You they stink. You know they smell. You know they stink. This is just the beginning. You are welcome.
And yes, we like
According to INEC, I'm sorry, I said INEC. According to NNPC Limited, which is to inform our esteemed customers that we have adjusted our pump prices of PMS across our retail outlets in line with current market reality. As we strive to provide you with the quality service for which we are known, it is pertinent to note that prices will continue to fluctuate to reflect market dynamics. We assure you that NNPC Limited is committed to ensuring a ceaseless supply of products. The company sincerely regrets any inconvenience this development may have caused. We greatly appreciate your continued patronage, support, and understanding during this time. This is from the NNPC Limited, ladies and gentlemen.
Maiyegun ti dé, gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra kì. Maiyegun ti dé, gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra kì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe ìgbé.
Sorry, how much is fuel?
I said it now, 240.
Sorry, where is Yoruba queue?
Yoruba
Yoruba queue.
Yoruba queue.
Where Yoruba people can buy fuel? No, APC, people that voted for APC, where can we buy?
You are in the right place.
No. This is not the price for APC.
Really?
Sorry.
Dramas everywhere.
Disable, àtisẹ́tẹ́, àti ń parọ́ tipẹ́, àtisẹ́tẹ́, òtítọ́ òdìmú òdodo òsì mọ́, àtisẹ́tẹ́, kágbàdé fáláre, àtisẹ́tẹ́, kágbẹ̀bí fáláre, àtisẹ́tẹ́, adájọ́ ń parọ́ torí owó, àtisẹ́tẹ́, òtìlú ń parọ́ nítorí ipò, àtisẹ́tẹ́, èdò gbówó mi ń tẹ́, àtisẹ́tẹ́, ìjà ń jàrá.
Maiyegun ti dé, gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra kì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Kì máa rí ṣe.
Ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Kì máa ṣeré. Ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ lẹ́rù o, ọmọ máyé. Thank you so much. We are just opening the first chapter or a preface of what a renewed scam, renewed fraud, and then the renewed sufferings will truly mean. Tonight, I am going to kind of take you in a little bit of a journey. Then I am having a guest that is also going to help kind of, tell us what we probably don't know too. And that will be David. So David will be joining us later on this broadcast tonight. He's already in the studio with me. However, the announcement of Kolu has sprung up different debates. The economic reality of Nigeria today, the affordability to continue to pay for subsidy or not. But all arguments are coming to one thing, whether you like it or not, whether Kolu cares or not. Subsidy is gone. How do you adjust to this? What is the government's economic plan to save businesses and all of that? Now, listen, this is what I jotted down. You know, I'm very terrible in arithmetics, right? So I jotted this down. A lot of you, after the announcement of the NNPC, Nigeria NNPC, that there's going to be 300% increase in petroleum price in Nigeria, 511 naira. It's official, according to them. So if you want to buy 511 naira, just go to any NNPC outlet. You'll get it for 511 naira. And you can buy as much as possible. But that is 300% increase from what you used to pay. And, you know, it's not just what you pay alone. It is what other things that this is going to really affect or already affecting. For example, transportation. Now, let's say you have your own car. And that your car has a small tank of, let's say, 50 liters. So you need to fill the tank 50 liters every week. So if you start buying for 511 naira from what you used to buy or pay for it, let's say you have a business or you have a job, and from your own salary you pay for this, okay? So before now with 511 naira at NNPC, at your 50 liters, so you will begin to spend 25,500 naira every week. Now in a month, that is 5 days a week or another days, yeah? In a month, you begin to spend 102,000 naira. That is what the announcement means. When you want to understand what is subsidy removal, what does that mean? Now, this is if you go buy NNPCO. Now, let's say your own car is of 70-liter tank, right? At 511 naira. So a week, your own money now will be 35,770 naira every week to fuel your tank to wherever you want to go to. Now, in a month, you begin to spend 143,000 naira every month for you who have cars. Now, if you are a cabby, that's as you know, you are like a driving Uber, your own car. With this change, that means your fare will have to reflect what you are paying for fuel. You know that, which means your passengers will have to pay more now. So again, if you are the type that takes public transportation, for example, in a week, hang on, let's say in a day, you spend 500 naira to walk and back, 500 naira, right? Now, with this new price and the changes in the transportation fare, that 500 naira can go up to 1,000 naira now. That journey of 500 naira can go up to 1,000 naira or more. Now, if that is what you begin to spend every day from your salary, 5 days a week, that means you'll be spending 5,000 naira on transportation now. I don't know what you used to spend though, but you begin to spend from 5,000 naira on transportation to work every week. Now, for a whole month, 20 days, you will need 20,000 naira from your salary. You don't have car, you have to use the public transportation. And same things go for those of you who spend more. Think of what with them, like, you know, double to or triple to. That is what the subsidy simply means, okay? Now, your employers will need to do something on your package. And this is just on transportation. No other things like you want to buy this or buy that. The prices are going to be different now, from now on, if they are not already. Now, let's say you are not so lucky to buy your own from NNPC depot anywhere in Nigeria all the time, and you used to like have to buy in sort of other oil marketers or filling stations, and you are buying yours at 800 naira, like those who bought in Lagos today, 800 naira per liter. So let's use that calculation as well. You buy at 800 naira per liter. You have a car with 50-liter tank. So which means to fill that tank every week, 50 liter, drive it for 7 days, no matter how much you manage, Abby, that means you'll be spending 40,000 naira every week to fill that tank. Now, I don't know how much you spend currently. Oh. You are not traveling. This is just for work or business. Oh. Now, you'll be filling that with 40,000 naira every week. Now, what do you call it? Every month in 4 weeks, that simply puts, you'll be spending 160,000 naira. Now, so factor that into what you are earning, okay? And tell which area of your business or your work or your salary will take the hit. That's what subsidy mean, okay? Now, let's say your own car is that of 70-liter tank, right? So you will, at 800 naira per liter, you will need 56,000 naira to fill that car every week. And for a whole month, you'll be spending 224,000 naira to fill that car. Now, if you use your car for business, you know what this simply means for you as well, right? That business will have to adjust to this new reality, and your customers and all of them, right, would have to react to. Now, let's say, apart from having a car and all of that, okay, those of you who have cars, where you know you are placed in all of this now, electricity problem in Nigeria hasn't kind of improved. You know that, I mean, sort of got better, right? Now, after transportation, domestic use, I better pass my neighbor. The amount of petrol and diesel that you consume, a lot of people are now reverting to converter and all of that stuff. But let's assume that, and let's talk to those of you who are using generator. I better pass my neighbor generator. After taking out whatever this is going to cost from your earnings every month, okay, then you now have to consider what you spend domestically on petrol too, right? Let's say your own generator is just 5-liter generator, okay? 5-liter generator, which means you have to carry a 5-liter jerry can to go and buy it, Abi? So that 5-liter at 800 naira per liter means you will now be spending every day. I mean, sorry, not every day. You know what I did is this economic kind of calculation. Okay, I said, let's say there is electricity, and most times there is not, or maybe every night you use your own generator every night because you don't used to get electricity every night. Okay, so which means you have to buy half of, let's say, 30 days. There's possibility that you are going to turn on your generator 15 days in 30 days. So the possibility in between depends on how rich you think you are. But let's assume that you are the type that always kind of have to use your generator 5-liter every evening for that alone, right? Then you will be spending 4,000 naira. Now, if you have to spend on your generator domestic use in 15 days in a month, right, that will automatically take you to 60,000 naira. Now, you have two options. Cut down how many hours you put on your generator, or find a way to factor in this increase in your domestic use as well. Now, if you are the type that is like your own don't improve small, your appliances are bigger than I better pass my neighbor. Your generator takes about 10 liters of petrol at 800 naira. In a month, if you spend, 800 naira on your 10 liters every, let's say, 15 days in a month, that would be 8,000 naira, okay, times 10 liters. Then 8,000 naira times 15 days. That means you will be prepared to be spending at least 120,000 naira in powering your generator. Now, on and on and on like that, you can do the math too. Now, in all of this, there are no conversation around, oh, we are going to increase your salary, or we are going to pump in money into the economy to help businesses that these are going to affect, so that they will be able to still manage and, help their own workers and staffs in coping with this new reality. So everybody is just going to find a way around it, because there is no clear conversation. So we have seen them, they are like shutting down filling stations. Why are you selling above the normal price? What is the normal price? Take a look at this one.
This thing is very wrong, sir. In a state where we have a government sitting over, and funny enough, this thing it's a pronouncement from the president yesterday that has not even been implemented. How can you be so wicked? As at yesterday, this guy was selling fuel at 200 plus.
230.
230. You change it to 600 naira.
600 naira. Today.
Overnight.
It's outrageous.
Do you get that? The usual knee-jerk approach. Make it look like they could control the whole price, when indeed they are the author of the whole confusion. So, without wasting much of our time, right? I have a lot of stuff here I would love to share with you as well, but I'm going to kind of do it with David, where, you know, paired on this conversation tonight. So if you are joining us from wherever you are watching from, to me and to those who are in the know, they believe that this is just the beginning. All right. So I'll get David on now. And then, you know, David.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
How are you, Baba?
I'm good.
Beautiful. See, the conversation at first, right? I would probably want you to say hello to our viewers, okay? Because the conversation tonight is going to be bordering on the reality of today, where those who probably never envisaged that Tinubu's first action is going to be like all-encompassing. Nobody is spared, right? And some said this is just the beginning. So please say hello to my people who are also here, and even your friends too.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the welcome to the new dispensation. I think there's a saying that says the king is dead, long live the king. So meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So we're in the era of Buhari Pro Max. So good luck to everyone.
So simply put, the last time we had this conversation, it was then presidential candidate, if I could recollect, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, we did one after that. That was when he became a president-elect. And this time around, we are now dealing with the man with absolute power, the commander-in-chief, right? What does this actually mean in reality now, okay, in practice, not in theory and grammar? David.
So I think we've already started seeing what the reality means. Starting from his very first meaningful action as president, one of the very first things he did was he came out and made a knee-jerk policy declaration. You are old enough to have lived through the military era, so I'm sure when I say this phrase, you're going to remember what it means. Government by decree. Or policy by announcement. So back in the days, in the 80s and 90s, when you just wake up one morning and you just hear an announcement on the radio that General Ibrahim Babangida has banned the color blue. General Sani Abacha has banned people from coughing at 7 a.m. Something. It's like one random policy pulled out of the air and it's just thrown at you and it becomes the law because your guy at the top said it. We're starting to see a reprisal of that. I mean, we saw that throughout the Buhari era, and from the very first day of Tinubu's era, we've seen the same thing because it wasn't a secret that, as you mentioned, the fuel subsidies had to go. That's just regardless of what anybody's feelings are on the matter, the fact is that Nigeria simply doesn't, even if Nigeria wants to keep on paying those subsidies, there's just no money. There is no way to keep on paying them. So the subsidies simply had to go. It's not even as if anybody removed the subsidies. It's just that the subsidies had to go. There's nothing you can do, right? So that wasn't a secret. But the issue was when you are in that situation, the people don't quite understand the complexities involved in the pricing of fuel. All the people know is that low price of fuel is good, high price is bad. And to an extent, you can understand them because, as you also mentioned, the price of fuel has a very outsized effect on people's day-to-day lives. Whether you have a car or you don't have a car, it affects you. You power your generator, you use public transport, you eat. All those things require fuel. So all those costs are passed across to you. So high pump prices do affect people very disproportionately. And there's also been an argument, a very convincing argument that I've heard from people that as a Nigerian citizen, what benefit do you actually get from the Nigerian state? And the only meaningful thing you can think of is relatively cheap fuel. So that was pretty much the only thing people enjoyed as Nigerian citizens. So when you know you're dealing with that kind of situation, but the subsidies have to go anyway, regardless of all of this. There's a delicate way of breaking the news. First of all, you didn't even need to break the news because the outgoing Buhari administration had already stated that they made no budgetary provision for the subsidy after June 2023. So, in my opinion, you had the perfect opportunity to sort of palm it off onto your predecessor and say that this is what he did. And then make it look like he didn't even want to do it, but that's just what you meant, and it wasn't your fault. There was a way, it would have been mischievous, but there was a way to pass it off. And Nigeria being Nigeria, Nigerians will eat it up because, with all due respect, they're not the smartest people in the world, right? But instead of even doing that, he decided that the best thing to do is to be belligerent, is to come out in front of a microphone, in front of the whole world, and say subsidy is gone. You know, I don't know why he thought that was a good idea, but by doing that, he sparked a completely avoidable market panic. So the video you played just before this, where they say somebody was selling at 230 the previous evening, and by the next morning that jumped to 600. Why did that happen? That happened specifically because Tinubu went and made that pronouncement, that very ill-judged, ill-advised pronouncement. And from what I understand, apparently it wasn't even part of his prepared speech. So he didn't even need to say that. He just, as we say in Yoruba, Ojabolenu, he just fell out of his mouth in his characteristic, in his characteristic manner, where he doesn't understand tact, doesn't understand diplomacy, doesn't understand how to filter himself. He just, anything that comes to his mind, he says it because he believes that he's God. And that's what he did now. And he has started off this completely avoidable panic, completely avoidable hoarding and associated price spikes, completely avoidable. It didn't need to be like this. There was a way this whole issue could have been managed that even with the higher prices, there wouldn't even have needed to be any kind of scarcity. There wouldn't have been any hoarding and long queues. There was a way to handle it. Obviously, that's not his business. I mean, when was the last time he or his family members ever queued up for fuel? Have they ever queued up for fuel in Nigeria before? Probably when he was a child or something, I don't know. So he just came out and, in classic Babangida and Abacha fashion, just spat something out of his mouth.
Now, you see, David, one of the recent arguments is that during the campaign, almost all the candidates said they were going to let go the subsidy because it's an unnecessary drain, which has now run Nigeria so aground that Nigeria has started borrowing money to pay these guys. Yeah. So, including Peter Obi, you as someone who is, a supporter of Peter Obi, one of these were thrown at so many of you, although it's been sort of kind of watered down in a way, like you just mentioned. The argument was, if it was Obi, would he have done it differently? Like, in your own opinion, if I have a clip, by the way, can you hear that, David?
Yes, I can
like
hear you.
What could Obi, for example, have done differently? Understanding and all of this, yeah. Like, in your view.
The good thing about supporting Peter Obi is that I don't even have to put words in his mouth, because he actually came out and said by himself what he was going to do. He made a public statement about it, which is something Tinubu never did. So he stated that his initial plan will be to do a staged removal. So initially, do a 50% removal, and then introduce palliative measures to sort of take the sting out of these, because it is a shock to most people. It does create pain for people. Their transport costs go up, their food costs go up. I'm sure you're aware, there was a study that was done in, I think, 2021 that showed that the average Nigerian family spends about 60% of its income. The average Nigerian household spends about 60% of its monthly income on food alone. So anything that causes food inflation is a very big problem, and everything is competing with food in a typical Nigerian household budget. So whenever the fuel price goes up, it creates a big food inflation problem, which hurts a lot of people. It leads to actual problems with feeding, right? So he stated that the removal will be gradual, it will be staged. So first of all, take off 50% of the subsidy, then introduce palliative measures, and then later on take off the other 50%, which I think is a smart way of handling it, because those subsidies will have to go anyway.
Yeah, sorry, David. Okay, let's use his words according to him himself, Peter Obi. Then you can elaborate further, right? The word of you guys in contention here. Just a moment.
No matter how long you protest, though, we are going to remove subsidy. That is the truth. That is the truth. Unless you don't, and I'm going to win this election.
It's not what it is. Half of the subsidy that is being, what is being mentioned is not subsidy. First is that we consume the quantity that is not supposed to be consumed here. We are the same population with Pakistan. They consume below 50% of what we consume. So first, the first half, I will remove it and give those people who are drinking it water, because that's what they're supposed to drink, so we can save the money. Two, we will deal with the other remaining issue. We need the money today with our debts. We need the money to be able to invest in a critical social development issues. Look at this year's budget. This year's budget, education, which is the highest since this government came, is about 2 trillion. Health, which is the highest since this government came, is about 1.5 trillion. Then infrastructure, which is road and everything, is about 1 trillion. So these 3 critical development areas is receiving 4.5 trillion. Subsidy is 3.6 trillion.
Six.
No, half year.
Okay.
Half year is 3.6. So if it's full year, it's about 7 trillion. Which country will invest more in subsidy than education and health and even roads? It doesn't make sense. This is annual.
David.
The difference is clear. You can clearly see the difference between someone who even knows what he's talking about and another person that is just not really there. Like, there isn't really much to be said.
That's like it said itself. Now, if this is what we are going to be dealing with, right? A lot of people are praying that it shouldn't last, so that maybe they can actually feel free. Or else, if it's going to be a long journey, let's start reviewing some sectors that once they begin to take it, Nigerians probably will begin to miss Buhari. Let me ask you this first. Do you think it is possible for Nigerians to miss Buhari with this Tinubu?
I don't just think it's possible. I think it has already started happening. And I'll explain what I mean. So I woke up this morning. My friend in the US actually woke me up. He sent me a message on WhatsApp, and I opened it, and it was a screenshot. And it was a screenshot of Folashade Tinubu's Twitter page. And he was asking me a question because he's not a Yoruba person. I think he's Igbo. So he was asking me that what does this word Iyaloja mean? And then I saw the screenshot, and on the screenshot you could see that she had changed her bio on Twitter, and it now read Iyaloja General of Nigeria. And then after that, first daughter of Nigeria. And in that moment, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not something I consciously said, but in that moment, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, even Zara Buhari and Hadiza Buhari never did this. So I think it has already started happening. We've already started once you start making those comparisons that even Buhari, even once you start making those comparisons, you've already started missing Buhari. So I think it has already started happening.
So the drama's like, can you hear me, David? Okay, the drama's like DSS versus EFCC yesterday morning. So things like that are always going to be like, come on. Is that also like in the pipeline?
I mean, so we saw things like that during the Buhari era. So it looks like it's more of the same, which is why I said the king is dead, long live the king. It's just that instead of it's merely just being more of the same, we're not having expansions in other areas that even Buhari wasn't even able to fully explore. So these guys are, I have a theory that part of the reason why he was so eager and so instrumental in pushing Buhari to the presidency in 2015 was that I believe that he felt that Buhari was going to perform so disastrously that expectations would be lowered will be lowered far enough for him to have a realistic shot at actually being president. And I think that's what has happened. So, I mean, in a way, well played.
It did is a well play. Now, you know, from the start, I did ask you that this is the reality. He's the commander in chief now, right?
Yeah.
If he gaffes, it can cost lives.
Yep.
Talk less of them having to make up policies that are laced with self or their own selfish interest without considering the ripple effects, like generally. Yeah. So I asked earlier, I said, like, if Buhari that a lot of people felt like he's the worst, and Buhari's effect is not even limited to Nigeria. It's so spread that even Nigerians outside Nigeria were feeling the grunt and the brunt. You get what I mean? So now here we are. This is Tinubu. Now, what does this really mean to us when it comes to the, being Nigerian abroad now? Before we were talking about what it was going to be like when it becomes this. Now he is.
He is.
So what does this mean in practice, like practically, not theory?
Well, I guess in a way it's one of those questions. It's one of those questions. It's one of those questions that we're going to find out the answer together as time goes on. One thing that seems very clear and obvious to me is that over the 8 years of Buhari, I think possibly the most significant thing that happened to Nigeria in an international sense, in terms of our experience as Nigerians outside of Nigeria, is that Nigeria has now become the world's largest insignificant country. And what I mean by that is that for a country this big with this many people, it has now, like, the way we're not even treated with hostility anymore. We're treated with complete disregard. It's like we're like citizens of Sao Tome and Principe. Right? For a country with supposedly, allegedly, population approaching 200 million people, that is never supposed to happen. But we've become so unimportant in the global space, so utterly and incredibly unimportant, not just in a diplomatic sense, even economically, even small things like you want to use, so you're opening a bank account abroad. Let's say you're not a foreign passport holder, you're a Nigerian passport holder, but you have a visa. So in the country you are trying to open a bank account or something like that. The way you get treated, it's almost like it's no longer a case of, oh, you're a Nigerian scammer or you're a Nigerian criminal. No, it's more like a case of, oh, Nigeria, where is that? We've become so utterly irrelevant to the world around now. Even within Africa, we've started getting treated that way. When Jonathan handed over the country to Buhari, you could travel as a Nigerian passport holder to Kenya visa-free. You cannot do that anymore. You now need to apply for a visa. You don't even get to Kenya and get the visa on arrival. You have to apply from your country, as if you're applying to go to the UK or the US. You apply for a Kenyan visa, you pay money, dollars.
Normally.
They grant you a visa and then you fly to their country. And even at the point of entry, they will still want to know, why are you here? What are you doing here? That's how irrelevant we become. So I don't see a Tinubu presidency doing anything whatsoever to reverse that slide. I don't see him.
That would have been my question, right? Do you see him, but it would have been like a rhetorical question anyway, that do you see him reversing all of that? See, I want to add something as well. I've seen hardworking Nigerians who have come online to complain of being removed from setting up accounts that could help them kind of retrieve all their earnings from different platforms abroad. Simply because they are from Nigeria. Or they couldn't make payments
exactly
outside Nigeria simply because they are from Nigeria. So many people have actually been like refused some quite good gigs that some of these young people will call it gigs in their own area of expertise simply because they are from Nigeria. So 8 years of Buhari destroyed a lot of opportunities. So when I now look at that and I'm like, could they have it worse? Could Nigerians still have it worse? Like, and what does that mean, having it worse, David?
So, first of all, regarding what you just mentioned about Nigerians being locked out of the global financial system, that's a very real thing. And it's not just people's experiences. There's a reason for this, which a lot of people aren't aware of. I'm going to read an excerpt now. So, if you heard of something called the Global Financial Action Task Force, FATF,
right?
It's a U.S. government institution that basically regulates people's access to transactions involving U.S. dollars. You may be aware that I think something like 85% of all global trade is carried out using U.S. dollars. But 85% of all global transactions are settled using U.S. dollars. So, and any transaction, legally speaking, any transaction anywhere in the world which is carried out using U.S. dollars is subject to the U.S. Treasury Department. So there's something called the FATF, and Nigeria, as of February 2023, is now on something called the gray list of the FATF. So basically, the FATF looks at things like money laundering, terror financing, that sort of thing, funding of narcotics networks. You know, that's what the FATF focuses on, and Nigeria has now been placed on the gray list. Alongside, let me read the countries. Yeah. So Albania, Barbados, Burkina Faso, Cayman Islands, Democratic Republic of Congo, Gibraltar, Haiti, Jamaica, Jordan, Mali, Mozambique, obviously Nigeria, Panama, Philippines, Senegal, South Africa, and South Sudan, Syria, Tanzania, Turkey, Uganda, United Arab Emirates, Yemen. So basically, we are now subject to increased monitoring by the FATF. So that is why these things have started happening, and they will keep on happening. The only way to become no longer subject to increased monitoring by the FATF is for controls to be tightened within these countries. Is for these countries to demonstrate increased compliance with FATF guidelines. However, under a Tinubu presidency, good luck achieving enhanced compliance. So basically, this is the new normal. So Nigerians' access to the global gig economy is going to be severely restricted in the coming few years under a Tinubu presidency. That's not my opinion, that's the fact. It has already started happening. Technically, it started happening under Buhari since that was February 2023. But I'm sure the significance of this isn't lost on you, that while this same US in front, they've been going, Joe Biden sent a congratulatory message to Tinubu after holding off for 3 months and pretending as if he couldn't see or hear anything. He eventually sent a congratulatory message. This same US government has, behind the scenes, knowing full well since February 2023 that it looks like a drug pusher or an ex-drug pusher, you know, whether it's current or ex, you don't know, is about to become president of this country. They've quietly went and put Nigeria on an increased monitoring, you know. So, you know, these were things we were saying during the pre-election period, and it just sounded like, these people have come again with their conspiracy theories. But I'm sure we have started seeing the fallout. And this, I remember I was on a show and I made this exact point, that this is what these foreign governments do. They will not come out and announce it, right? So this FATF thing, for example, they didn't go and put it in the New York Times that Nigeria has been placed on a special list. No, they just quietly issue one quiet statement on one website that you will never visit, FATF website. You won't even know why. So it happened to me. I used to use what's it called? A neobank called Wise. You might know it as TransferWise. Now, even though I live in the UK now, back when I opened it in 2018, I was living in Nigeria. So the address that I registered the account with was my old address in Lagos, and my identity document was my Nigerian passport. So a few weeks ago, they just came and they just randomly locked my account and told me I have to prove my source of wealth because I was trying to make a £500 transfer.
Really?
And I tackled them like, what the hell do you mean by source of wealth? Do you think £500 is too much for a Nigerian to have or something? They closed the account. They've closed it. And that's going to start happening to a lot more people. So this is the new reality now. This is no longer just, obedience are saying, or this person is saying. It's happening now. It has started happening. And it's going to accelerate. The US has done their own. The UK, they've started doing their own with immigration.
Yes.
They've started. The EU, those ones are never far behind. It's so slowly, and exactly what I said, the world will start closing its doors against Nigeria. And eventually, even other African countries too will start doing the same thing. These are the results. Elections have consequences.
Now, talking about elections having consequences, David, one of the last push of the people who genuinely resisted these people until the INEC abracadabra and every other thing that is kind of following now, right? So, judiciary is the kind of the last, hope. What's it they call it? Last hope of the common man, even uncommon man. Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you see with Tinubu and judiciary? In your own view, with all that's happening right now, do you see them make a surprise by any means?
Because whether rightly or wrongly, I am viewed as someone who is part of the case, even though I'm not actually part of any case, but I'm viewed as someone who is part of the case because of the unique role that I've played in all of this. So I worry that if I offer an opinion, it might become a problem. It might become because I've actually been advised because I obviously have a lawyer. I've been advised
that's part of the case already because your own investigation.
So I've been advised. I've been advised by the lawyer that speaking publicly, especially on camera, about potential legal opinions by the judges might be viewed as interfering with the legal process. I disagree, but at the end of the day, a lawyer's word is a lawyer's word. So what I would just say,
right? I wanted to say Tinubu and judiciary generally in a country where he's the commander-in-chief, right? That's we can leave the court out of it, tribunal, but go on.
So what I will say is that the tribunal, the judiciary, because the tribunal is part of the judiciary, it's under the appeal court. The judiciary has a very unique situation before it. It has a decision to make. This is not one of those election tribunal cases where it's just a matter of this person said, that person said, oh, they sent dogs to carry my ballot box. Then this one was saying, no, I didn't do it. And then back and forth, back and forth. This is not that kind of election tribunal case. First of all, in terms of the actual election process, there has never been another election in Nigeria's history where there has been as much evidence that has been readily available and that is being tendered before the court. That is a very significant thing. Secondly, the other ancillary issues surrounding even the qualification of the candidates to be involved in the election. Let's just say there's very, 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 very solid and compelling evidence, some of which has already been admitted to court. So the judiciary has a choice before it, a very unique choice that may never be repeated at any other time in Nigeria's history, that you can choose, you have the blue pill or you have the red pill. You can choose the blue pill. You can take what some might consider to be the easy way out, and the consequence of that will be that forever and ever, maybe people, both Nigerians and non-Nigerians, the level of seriousness that they will accord to the Nigerian judiciary will be severely downgraded. Or you can take the red pill and risk going to war with the Nigerian head of state, which obviously is not a very easy thing to do, because even though on paper the judiciary is an independent arm of government, in practice it's not. No, it's not. In Nigeria, it's not independent because the presidency controls the funding of the judiciary, so it's not independent. But it's not unheard of, even in Nigeria, for the judiciary to go against the wishes of the executive. It's not unheard of. So again, we wait and see. As I said, they have a very unique opportunity before them, and I'm very curious to see what they are going to do, because one way or the other, there are going to be some very, very, very real consequences of whatever choice that they make, whether A or B. So we wait and see.
Buhari was famous for disobeying court orders. Like I said, right? Where people just felt like the courts could give a judgment and people would now be waiting if the Buhari government is going to honor it or not. Like, it has become so that people are so used to it, even to the Supreme Court level, that it took them days to even consider if they were going to obey what the Supreme Court said on the new Naira note and all of that. So, you really think a Tinubu can pull off that too, since Buhari has laid the precedent for it somehow? Disobeying courts.
Can he? I don't think there's anything that a Nigerian president cannot do. But will he? That's a different issue altogether. But can he? You have to remember that the 1999 Constitution was written by soldiers. Who had every intention of keeping themselves in power by transitioning into civilian clothing. So the kind of powers that were written into the Constitution, either directly or by omission or by inference, the kind of powers that were written for the president in that Constitution, we're still discovering more every day. So, and let me just give you a very brief example of this. The process of impeaching a Nigerian president, for example, it's close to impossible. You functionally cannot impeach a Nigerian president because the number of clauses and conditions that the House of Assembly has to fulfill before impeaching the president makes it such that it's not possible. So, first of all, the president has to be given notice of impeachment, and that notice has to be for 30 working days. So basically, you have to give the president close to 2 months of time to prepare himself, to prepare a counterattack. And then during all this time, all the security agencies, bear in mind, the security agencies in Nigeria do not really answer. I mean, they have some kind of oversight from the National Assembly and from the judiciary, but functionally, they report to the executive, they report to the president. So the president, in practice, has full and operational control of the police, the immigration, customs, the army, the navy, the air force, the NSCDC, the basically everybody with a gun in a uniform in Nigeria answers to the president, first and foremost. So there are all sorts of minefields that have been strategically placed in that constitution to make it almost impossible to get a sitting president out. However, in the case of an election tribunal, there is no precedent because it hasn't happened before. So, which is why I said this is going to be very interesting few weeks to watch play out.
Right, David. One of the major things that people are hoping that they are not going to miss about Buhari is the issue of the insecurity, where it seems that Nigerian soldier or Nigerian army or the Nigerian security agent generally, they are like paper tigers who can only bark but can't bite, but they do bite Nigerians only, right? And somehow it is generally believed that this is like state sanctioned for them to kind of step down while the operations are being kind of controlled for a certain purpose, right? So here is President Tinubu with all the drama that surrounds this election. And in fact, this tribunal case that is still hanging, do you think, or should I say, what do you see Tinubu and the military? Is it going to be the business as usual, whereby the only problem they will see are the problem of those criticizing the government, not the problem of those who are murdering Nigerians? So what would you kind of predict, if I may say, David, on security?
Being that being that Tinubu comes from the southwest, whether it comes from Lagos or Osun, that's up for debate, but it comes from the southwest. He and the constituency that he probably purports to represent in the southwest has itself been a victim of sort of large-scale insecurity and acts of terror, acts of violence, such as the Catholic Church massacre in Owo last year. I don't, on very cursory examination, it doesn't seem as if Tinubu is going to be sort of actively providing cover for the terrorists, the way Buhari seemed to be doing at a point during his presidency. However, the thing is that these elements, because let's be very clear about this, these terrorists and genocidists, whatever they are, bandits, jihadists, they have their elements in the Nigerian military, Nigerian armed forces, they do. The Nigerian armed forces, I should mention, does not really rate Tinubu as such. He might have been able to buy off the sort of the ranking officers, like the top brass, because that's what he specializes in doing. He pays everybody off. But I can tell you for a fact, from the middle to the lower ranks, they don't rate him at all. And not just for the fact of his criminal history, but also for the fact that he has no military pedigree whatsoever. You should remember that since the return of democracy in 1999, it has only happened once, and that was a Goodluck Jonathan. But there was a Nigerian president that did not have any military pedigree. Every other president has had military pedigree. So Olusegun Obasanjo was an ex-general. Omar Yar'Adua was the brother of the original Yar'Adua. People forget that. And obviously, Buhari, we know who he is. Tinubu is a complete departure from all of that. And there are quite a number of people in the armed forces who are not happy about the situation. So when you add that to the reality that a lot of these fifth columnist elements have people in the armed forces, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that some of this insecurity will still continue. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. The only thing that can sort of stop it dead in its tracks is if whoever the Nigerian president is actually sort of takes a very direct personal interest in it, such as what happened in 2014 in the lead up to the 2015 elections, when Goodluck Jonathan decided to tackle the security problem finally, and he brought in the South African mercenary group STTEP, right? And in the space of about 4 months, I think something like 80% of the territory that was being held by Boko Haram was recovered. And then obviously Buhari came in, and the first thing he did was that he ended that contract for reasons best known to him. It was never explained. But when the Nigerian president has that kind of interest, displays that kind of seriousness, the problem will go away very quickly. So does Tinubu have that kind of interest? Does Tinubu have that kind of focus? Is he even capable of having that kind of focus? Is he even aware? These are the issues we don't know.
So we'll have to keep guessing. So the last one, which was said, the last time, Buhari, one of the things we believed, like you also said, it was to give a cover to these rogues and all that, yeah? And also the absence of Buhari contributed to, in fact, most of all this mess, where everybody became government in their own right and space. Yeah. And therefore made it pretty much clearer to everybody that it is either there is no interagency communication or exchange of information, or they don't even exist at all. They just exist by building and names. You know, when you say a DSS, when you say, okay, who are the DSS? Some ragtag criminals can just show up and say we are DSS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we say, okay, who are the military intelligence agents? Some ragtag roles can show up and say we are the... So that's the situation we have under Buhari, because it was nowhere. And you just mentioned that that is if Tinubu is aware, probably then he can react and use that influence and that power. But how can he be aware when you saw that inauguration video when he got disoriented on the stage?
It's very clear. It's very clear that this, at the very least, we don't know exactly what is wrong with him, but it's very clear that he's not, the lights are on, but nobody's home. It's very clear, which is why I mentioned that. Is he aware? You see how I mentioned earlier at the outset that statement he made about the removal of subsidy, the subsidy is gone. That wasn't part of his prepared speech. He was not meant to say anything about the subsidy during that inauguration address, and it just fell out of his mouth. So is he there? Is he present? I don't think so. So, well.
So it's a gamble. If we are gambling, David, if Nigeria is gambling on economy, gambling on security, isn't that a direct way of saying we are gambling on our lives? You know something? We will take a break, David. This is like an hour of the broadcast. We'll take a break of just about 3-4 minutes. You might make yourself, any kind of refreshment and all that. And then we'll continue in about 3-4 minutes. I want to listen to that Yaloja General of Nigeria, the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. David, I will see you in 2 minutes. Thank you. So here is where we're going to have that break. A break that, you can use this moment as well to stretch your legs, stretch your body, make yourself another cup of tea and all that. This is just the first part. We still have a beautiful long night ahead of us. So you have heard about Yaloja Folashade Tinubu. Power is there, and from the report we received, that Nigeria is going to have a new central bank governor. Yeah, Emefiole was inside the asshole rock yesterday, supposedly briefing Tinubu. But from the report we now got after that is that you now have the president, you have the deputy president, then you have the vice president. So the president is Tinubu. The deputy president, which is going to be your de facto president, is Remy. Then you have the shitty man as the vice president. 3 of them and their ADCs were at the meeting where Emefiole briefed Tinubu. However, Folashade Tinubu, the Yaloja General of Lagos, has now kind of, increased their own title. She is now a Yaloja General of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. She is also the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And as she is right now, if you have to address her, you have to say, Her Excellency, Mrs. Folashade Tinubu, the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, GCM. I don't know the meaning. Don't ask me. She's already started her own pet projects, youth development, and women empowerment. Listen, that is what's going to be our break. We'll start with this.
Thank you very much. Please sit down. Please. Thank you. Good afternoon in the house. Because I say in the house because I believe we are just family and we are having a family deliberation here. May I just seize this opportunity to apologize for our lateness to start this program behind our scheduled time. I want to seek indulgence to stand on the well-established protocols and appreciate the friends of the Yaloja General. Appreciate the conveners and all the friends here gathered and all the presenters, the teachers, our lecturers. Yes. Thank you so much for the impact. It's very, very educative this afternoon. and we learn one or two things. We will take it home, especially when it has to do with advocacy. May I just say to our people, our time is not wasted sitting here for about how many hours? It is very important for us to disseminate the information and take it down. Let all the information gathered here today be useful for our people. We're not just here to celebrate each other. We are here to impart. And, information is power. We have gotten some information. Thank you, gathered here, to please disseminate the information and advocate to our people that, is important for us to join hands with the government of the day. Make sure you pass the information. They said if you hear something or see something, say something. Very, very important. Then it gives me the great pleasure to welcome you. No, I don't want to go through this speech. I'm not welcoming you. I just want to appreciate you because we spent some time, quality time with each other. We've learned from each other. We appreciate all those that gives us necessary information. And I want to stand here to appreciate all of you once again. As the organizers of the event, I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all of you that contributed one way or the other. We shall continue to work together. It's a renewed hope in Nigeria. Our hope will be renewed, and inshallah, we would all see the benefit of a new government. We would all work towards having a Nigeria that will work for all of us. It is not solely the responsibility of the government. The government cannot provide everything we needed. It is also our responsibility to contribute our own quota. And one of the contributions is information. We'll pass to the government whenever we see anything that is going wrong. And we'll pass recommendation also. No idea or knowledge is waste. Gathered here.
The first daughter of the Federal Republic of Drogistan, Nigeria. So yeah, that's us back from our break. And David is back too. David, you're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, man. The next stage, which also affects people, we're talking about policies that, or decisions that will turn to policies that will eventually have to touch or affect lives of millions of people, either negatively or positively. One of the ones that took Nigerians by surprise, the shock was enough actually for APC not to have anything to do with Nigeria this hour, right? Until Yakubu did his magic. I'm talking about the new Naira note.
Right.
But businesses were destroyed, right? Lives were destroyed. We saw old men crying inside banks. And up till now, nobody has given any clearer answer why the new note is actually not in circulation as it should be. Anyway, yesterday we saw in the news that Emefiele was in the villa to brief Tinubu, which also sparked the rumor of a possible ease out kind of arrangement where he's going to resign and a new central bank governor will be nominated and all that. So where do you see Tinubu? He's been talking a lot about giving people credit loan facilities, this and that, to cut corruption and all that. So where do you see Tinubu and the monetary policy from where we are right now, to where exactly, in your own view, where do you see in Tinubu and monetary policy, please? Starting with that central bank nonsense, please.
So, okay, starting with the new notes fiasco. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Godwin Emefiele. I think, with the exception of Paul Ogoma from the 1990s, he was central governor under Abacha. I think there hasn't been a worse central bank governor in Nigeria's entire history as an independent country than Godwin Emefiele. So Godwin Emefiele is right up there with Paul Ogoma. It's between one of them. So I have no sympathy for him. When he was allegedly being hunted by DSS, or was it EFCC, whatever, and the rumor that he might be losing his job now, I feel no sympathy whatsoever for him. He was personally responsible for a lot of sufferings the Nigerians went through over the past 8 years, and he never at any point made any attempt to push back on any of Buhari's brilliant ideas. At no point. In fact, he was very happy to lend himself to become a blunt force instrument of policy execution by Buhari. It's because of Emefiele that Nigerians cannot pay for Apple Music subscription, cannot pay for Netflix with their Naira cards. That's an Emefiele legacy. It's because of Emefiele that Nigerians could no longer receive money, like the Nigerians who were working in the freelance economy could no longer receive money from foreign clients directly to their Naira accounts via services like Azimo, TransferWise. That's an Emefiele legacy. So I feel no sympathy for him whatsoever. I don't think there's any punishment that is too much for him. So frankly speaking, good riddance to bad rubbish. Now, with regard to what comes next, this is one of those very rare instances where we don't have guests. Tinubu himself has expressed what comes next in his own words. And it wasn't pretty. If you recall last year, I think it was actually in his manifesto, or what he said was his manifesto, where he proposed delinking expenditure and earnings. What a lot of people, because that sounds like big grammar to a lot of people. What that statement simply means is that currently, Nigeria, the amount of money Nigeria spends is limited by the amount of money that it makes. So even if you borrow, there's a certain ratio you cannot exceed based on your earnings. What he was proposing in his manifesto was that any such restriction should be removed. Spending and earning should be delinked. So in other words, if Nigeria is making 1 naira, as far as Tinubu is concerned, Nigeria should be able to spend 1,000 naira. It doesn't matter where the money is coming from. And his brilliant solution, because obviously you can't get 1,000 out of 1. So his brilliant solution is to print money. He has said so. Right? He has advocated for quantitative easing, which is a very complicated way of saying printing money. So that sort of Venezuela situation or the Zimbabwe situation where the naira has already taken a beating over the past 8 years. It has gone from about 280 naira to $1 to close to 750 as at when the handover took place. I don't know how much it is today. So it has fallen. How many 100% is that? It has fallen significantly over 8 years. But
that's like
under Tinubu, it looks as if under Tinubu, it looks as if when we may no longer be talking about galloping inflation. We might start talking about hyperinflation. It's upset. He basically is whatever policy, whatever project or money on it, that it should be restricted by the Nigerian Treasury. So as it concerns money. In fact, if you recall, in 2020, shortly after the lockdown, when the federal government actually physically ran out of money, if you recall, and they were putting out appeals to the telcos on Twitter saying, please come and pay your annual tax early. Tinubu actually proposed to the Buhari government that they should go and print a bunch of money. And in his mind and in his words, that it will spark up the economy. It doesn't matter how, it just go and print. So, I mean, the so-called ways and means CBN window, which permits the government to borrow from the CBN. I think the government is allowed to borrow, I think officially was allowed to borrow up to 5% of its annual earnings from the CBN for repayment subsequently. But in practice, it's under Emefiele, it exceeded that 5% massively. So Emefiele illegally printed money, basically, openly printed money illegally. So first of all, if Nigeria were to be a serious country, Emefiele should be, the minute he steps down from that position, he should be in a police cell somewhere. He should be investigated because he broke the law. But that's by the way.
Now. It should have been.
Yeah. But that's by the way. Shortly before the last Senate, a few days ago, one of the very last things that they did was that in one day, they amended the Constitution of Nigeria in one day. Something which is like, usually those kind of amendments, they take weeks and months. So they did it in one day. This story sort of flew past most people. They didn't notice it. The ways and means borrowing limits has been raised from 5% to 15%, just in time for Tinubu to come in. So officially, Tinubu is not able to borrow 15% of earnings from the CBN. In practice, you know that he's going to exceed that 15%. So the monetary policy of Tinubu is going to be one that is going to be disastrous for the value of the naira, because Tinubu is going to print a shit ton of money. There's no other way. There's no, he has not expressed any kind of plan or any kind of,
like, when we talk about inflation, hyperinflation, and the rest of that, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, explain this to Nigerians in a layman language, what this actually means in practice when things get to that stage.
So what it basically means is, if Nigeria makes $100 and the current exchange rate is 100 naira to $1, and then going by that, Nigeria then has a total of 10,000 naira, so that's 100 times 100. And then Nigeria now wants more money, but has no way of increasing the amount of dollar income that it has, and then simply goes and prints more naira. So instead of 10,000 naira, it now prints another 10,000, making 20,000. Since the dollar income it is making has not increased, the exchange rate then goes up, and instead of 100 naira, it now becomes 200 naira to that same $1. So basically, the more money you print without your foreign earnings also rising, the lower the value of your money, the more the exchange rate will be galloping upward. So basically, Tinubu has not expressed any idea whatsoever about how to boost Nigeria's export earnings, about how to boost dollar income. That's not his business. His own is with what is on ground, how do we extract more money? Naira. So he's going to print a shit ton of money. He's one of the most important things he has to do, which arguably has already started doing, is that a lot of the people who he has brought with him from Lagos, because there were plane loads of people that came from Lagos, bus loads and plane loads of people who have come from Lagos because they think that is their turn. So they, as far as they're concerned, the Buhari's CPC people and AMP people have had their 8 years of monopolizing everything in Abuja. So now it's the turn of Lagos to come and monopolize Abuja. So every man and his dog from Lagos is now in Abuja, hoping to become one chairman here, DG here, deputy chairman there. How they need money.
So what does that mean now? I think this is now taking us to where I actually would like us to again. After this economy part of it, okay, is this jobs, okay? If we know that Nigeria is currently with the highest number of unemployed people right now, is scandalous and seriously, scary, okay? But there are others who have become kind of employed through the usual nepotism you mentioned now, the Buhari era, when almost everybody, even Shukudi, want to be answering Alaji just to be able to top something from what is on ground. Yeah. Now they are now screaming Yoruba Lokon, so which means from Fulanization of Abuja. And Fulanization of Abuja is not really about the Abuja people. It is about the government institutions and anything that has to do with Abuja, that the Abuja people have to be subjected to. You know, sort of, Now that these guys are in Abuja, like you mentioned, a lot of people are going to kind of lose their jobs now, which they got because they are from a particular part of the country. Another part of the country is now in Abuja to do same. So they are now shouting Yorubanization in Abuja. So what does Tinubu's presidency pose for those who have enjoyed that privilege of where they come from under Buhari, the nepotism, which actually contributed to how divided Nigeria is today? In your own view, what do you think it's going to be like to them when they begin to take over all those ministries?
Well, it will be the exact same thing that happened after Umaru Musa Yar'Adua died, and especially after Goodluck Jonathan won the 2011 election. Because it was the same thing that happened in 2007. A bunch of people from your Katsinas and Jigawas and all those places went and set up camp in Abuja because Yar'Adua was coming. So it was their turn. The Yar'Adua died, and then Jonathan won the 2011 election, and then Jonathan replaced all of them with what they considered to be his people. So a bunch of people from the Southeast and the Niger Delta. So those people developed this huge sense of animus, because what happened at the time was that they got all that privilege, as you said, all those pork barrel jobs that Abuja offers, all those cushy jobs with high-sounding titles and fat pay where people don't really do any work. They lost all those things. They did. And they ended up having to go back to where they were coming from. So this was part of what even contributed to that huge sense of ethno-religious, ethno-racial animus that culminated in what we now know as the 2015 election. That's part of the reason why a lot of these people were so angry with Goodluck Jonathan. It wasn't necessarily much to do with his performance as a president. They couldn't really care less whether anybody's a good president or not. But a lot of them lost those things. The same thing is going to happen this time around. Tinubu's people now are even hungrier than Goodluck Jonathan's people were in 2011. And there are much more of them who are competing for a very limited number of spaces. So the so-called Fulani beneficiaries over the past 8 years, except the ones who have been fortunate enough to very deeply embed themselves in the system, they're going to find themselves out. That's how, this is the tragedy of what happens to Nigeria every 4 years or every 8 years. And that's why when the central institution of the country, which is the Federal Civil Service, when the central institution of a country is subject to so much constant churn, so much flux, so much change constantly, there's no continuity. Because you know that once you enter, you know that you have a 4-year window or an 8-year window at the max to grab everything you can. Because once the next guy comes in, you are out. That's how it works every time. There's never any continuity. So it's going to be the same thing. So the people who have, who spent the past 8 years, I remember in 2016, just about a year, less than a year after Buhari came in, I can't forget this image. It's stuck in my head. I was working then in marketing, and I had a project in Abuja. So I flew to Abuja, and I cannot forget, it was at the Cooper Expressway. There was this huge signboard that covers the road, and on the signboard, one of these people, one random nondescript Abdullahi, you don't know him from anywhere. This person does not do anything productive on this planet. And apparently he had taken out that billboard. That thing couldn't have cost anything less than 10 million naira to take it out. So a big electronic billboard. And he took it out to announce his wedding. I can't forget that image in my head, because this was less than a year after Buhari's people came in. So all of these people had come in and they had started seeing money. And they were very eager to show the world that it's their turn. The same thing is going to happen now. So all those people who were doing that for past 8 years, except the ones who have been very fortunate enough to very deeply embed themselves in institutions like the NNPC, they are all going to be swept out. And then in new sets from Lagos and Ogun and Oshun, they are coming to replace those ones for another, for however long Tinubu remains in office.
Well, one of the things that Tinubu used for decades to deceive the people of Southwest Nigeria, those who kind of believed him or once believed him, right, is the belief that until Nigeria is restructured, right, there will never be any meaningful development or progress in that country based on this turn-by-turn Nigeria limited of a thing, right? And Tinubu and his people, for years, they have presented themselves as those who would uphold such. In fact, in opposition for 16 years, it was their sing-song, restructure Nigeria. Today, majority of them are no longer talking about restructuring. And he's now paired with a man called Shetima, who said, restructuring my put. Now, the Yorubas who were told that there will be something for you, apart from appointment and all of this, so restructuring means so much to the Yorubas that we have been duped by it for so long before the Yoruba nation now took over the space, right? Now, we have a Yoruba man who have always been about restructuring. So could this be an opportunity, if I may ask, again, your view? I know it's a fraud, or you might have another view than mine when it comes to this. Resolving all these differences, do you think Tinubu could push restructuring this time around? Could restructuring actually mean something now? Any chance?
So how I'll answer that question is by telling you a story. It's very unfortunate because the story I'm about to tell is a story about Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Now, bear in mind, Goodluck Jonathan was somebody that I actually voted for in 2015. So, but nonetheless, where he had things that need to be called out, obviously they need to be called out. So there's somebody who, I have this on excellent authority, somebody who was there. So this isn't second-hand information, right? Shortly after Goodluck won the election in 2011, the people around Goodluck and Goodluck himself have been making the same noises about restructuring. What's it called? Reducing the size of government, or SNA report, restructuring, right? So they won the election. I think the election held in like February or March. And then May, they were sworn in, May 29. September, a prominent person from the Southwest, I'm not going to mention his name, but if you recall, during the election in 2011, Tinubu had gone into a sort of unofficial alliance with Goodluck Jonathan.
I know that.
And so a lot of the Southwestern people, prominent Southwestern political figures, had given their support to Goodluck Jonathan in 2011. So one of these prominent figures, who is part of the so-called Afenifere movement, so he bought a flight ticket, he went to Abuja, he requested to meet with the president at the villa. He went to the villa. Bear in mind that before the election, this was someone who had regular, open, easy access to Goodluck Jonathan. Now, this was a few months after the election. He went to the villa and demanded to see the president. And the protocol people told him, "Okay, you can't see the president." And he was angry that this is not what we agreed, that we spoke so much about restructuring, and I'm not seeing any progress on that front. And apparently what the person he was talking to, what that one told him, and this person was somebody who is from Delta State, apparently. And what that person told him was that, oh, so now that we don't enter, now that it's our turn, it's now that we go can't do restructuring. So the same thing is going to happen with these Tinubu's people. Everybody pays lip service to the idea of restructuring. And it's a very, very useful political tool. It's like a political football. Everybody talks about it. There was a time Atiku used to talk about restructuring. Tinubu, as you know,
even Buhari talked about restructuring in 2015.
Exactly. But as soon as they enter Aso Rock, they realize that absolute power, such as the kind that the Nigerian constitution gives you as Nigerian president, is very sweet. Nobody wants to let go of it. So as soon as they get in and they realize that it's our turn, it's our turn, me and my people, it's our turn. So all those things that we saw those other people doing for 4 years or for 8 years, and we're angry, we're beefing, now it's our turn to do our own back. So nobody cares about any restructuring at that point. So it's the same thing here. In fact, I don't think even right now, if you were to ask any of Tinubu or the people around him right now, that the presidency hasn't even started, if you ask them now about restructuring, they will look at you like, what is this one talking about?
What are you talking about?
After the fight that we fought to get here, first of all, do you know the amount of money that we've spent to get here, the number of people that we paid, the number of hurdles just to get here? So we think we did all that and then we're not going to pay ourselves back with interest.
But that would be a betrayal.
That's ultimately what all of this is about.
That would be kind of betrayal, like a betrayal of decades of trust and investment of trust in him. At the end of the day, it's going to be done, isn't it?
Whose fault is that? I would argue it's the people's fault because they invested their trust in a drug dealer from Chicago. The Yoruba political establishment has consistently produced far more credible people than Bola Tinubu. The only thing Bola Tinubu has ever had to offer throughout his entire time when he came into public consciousness in 1991 to date has been basically money backed up with violence. But there have been people who have had real substance from that Yoruba political establishment. So I think it's the fault of the people that they did not entrust their destiny to those more credible people. There have been several credible Yoruba leaders since the death of Obafemi Awolowo. Tinubu was the one that they should not have given it to, and because of money or whatever peculiar reason there was, Tinubu ended up maneuvering himself into pole position as de facto leader of the Yoruba political establishment. He should never have had that position. So ultimately, it's the people that are blamed. Why did they let him?
I bet that's a question that majority of them will have to answer. David, one of your greatest works is that of the Southern Kaduna crisis. Yes. In fact, it was one of those documented jobs you did with other people as well that spanned over 500 pages of documents. I saw that. Now, one of the things people were asking then was that those who perpetrated that kind of atrocity, genocide to be precise, right? Religious genocide in that part of, including the entire Middle Belt, they were those who were in Buhari's government. Indeed, they were protected at the time. And one of the things people said was that if justice was to be served, a day will come that Buhari will have no immunity to cover these guys anymore, right? Now, I know the whole problem is still very much existing, right? Before it becomes something that will begin to keep record of the atrocities done under Tinubu for however long it lasts, are there no means of putting together, I'm talking about those concerned from Southern Kaduna, to begin to seek international manhunt and justice for these characters, including Buhari, if I may ask? A little bit deviation now.
So the very disappointing and very unfortunate thing that I've come to understand about how the world works over the past years is that the concept of there being a rules-based international order is completely fictitious. It doesn't exist. The countries of this world that have power to create and enforce the institutions and rules that people are supposedly signed up to. So your ICC, what's it called? The Hague in the Netherlands, all these treaties, Geneva Convention, UN Human Rights, UN 2000 Convention on Human Rights, all of those things, they exist, but they're only enforced in exceptional circumstances. How I know this was shortly after the Lekki massacre in 2020. Now, the Lekki massacre was not, even though within Nigeria, the government tried so hard to try and do this gaslighting effort to try and convince people that it didn't happen. I'll say this very clearly for anybody who is listening. The international community was very, very aware of what happened. They knew it even better than we did. They were very, very aware of what happened. I'll also say this, even though I've never said this before. There is evidence that exists, and I'm talking about visual evidence that nobody has seen before. Even I haven't seen it before, but it exists, right? And these people have seen this evidence, so they know for a fact the ugliness of what happened on that night. There's not, they know it all, they do. And what happened in the aftermath of that event, in the aftermath of that, I fled Nigeria. A few other people like me also fled the country. And we did a lot of engagement with these international entities, these foreign partners. And what we realized was that these people, to say that they don't care is even giving them too much credit. It's like you are sitting opposite someone and the person is not even looking at you with disdain. He's looking through you. It's like you're not even there. You don't exist. Our lives do not matter to them. That's just the unfortunate reality of how this. I remember I was in 2021. I was speaking to someone from, off the record anyway. I was speaking to someone from the EU delegation to Nigeria, right? Because we met in an unspecified country I won't mention, and I asked him point blank that why are you guys saw what Buhari did on October 20, 2020. Why are you still happy for him to fly into your countries? You shake hands with your president, there's no issue. And what the man told me, strictly off the record anyway, but what he told me, and I've publicized this before, so it's fine to say it here. What he told me was that the EU and the UK, their number one policy priority when it comes to dealing with any issue regarding Nigeria or sub-Saharan Africa is migration. That's the only thing that matters. So as far as they were concerned, human rights is pretty much a secondary issue. So if what it means to protect human rights is to protect people who are protesting against a dictator and to stop the dictator from using lethal force against those people, by protecting those people against the dictator the way it was done in Libya under Gaddafi, where you recall Gaddafi tried to use the Libyan Air Force against protesters. And then the what's it called, NATO stepped in to protect the protesters, and that's how come the Gaddafi regime ended. Basically, to prevent this kind of scenario from recurring, they'd rather sit back this time around. And the reason they don't want that kind of scenario to recur, it's not because they care or they don't care about protecting you from a dictator. It's not that they want you to be ruled by a dictator or they don't want you to be ruled by a dictator. Their only problem is if any stability of that country, that means that you people are going to leave your country and are going to start marching your black asses toward the Mediterranean to try and cross to Europe. And that must be resisted by any means necessary. So if it means that they will arm Museveni, or they will arm Paul Biya, or they will arm Buhari or whoever to shoot protesters in the streets to maintain that stability, they will do so. That was the import of what he was saying, basically. So the so-called international community is never going to do anything. They're not interested. We've seen them again in their true colors. More recently, after, because I know the conversations that I've had with some of these players off camera, off record, they know what happened on February 25. They know what happened. They're very, very, very aware. And these same people, the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was the very first foreign head of state to issue official congratulations to Bola Tinubu. You think Rishi Sunak did not know that Tinubu did not win that election? He knew. He knows better than we do. He knew. The MI5 and the MI6 are very, very, very good at their job. He knows. So that's unfortunately how the world works. So it's not something that gives me any pleasure to say at all. It's something that almost breaks my heart. But the truth is that we are not important in global terms. We're just not. Maybe if we were more economically relevant to the outside world, so if we were like Hong Kong, or if we were Ukraine, or if we were, a country that has some kind of significance to in economic terms or in geostrategic terms, maybe they would take more of an interest. But as far as they're concerned, you're in sub-Saharan Africa, sufficiently far away from our borders, and then separated by that huge boundary, that huge barrier called the Sahara Desert. So unless there is anything that provides enough of an incentive for you to try and cross the Sahara to get to where we are, then it's fine. And our job is to make sure that this situation that can lead to there being an incentive to cross that desert doesn't arise. So we must maintain you exactly where you are, exactly where we like you. It's very unfortunate, but that's how the world sees us.
So one of the legacies, also one of the legacy of Buhari, is that it got Nigeria more divided, agitation everywhere, north, south, east, west, and all that, and they couldn't, for any chance, by any chance, bring them closer. So we have seen the bigotry associated with these guys, the one that everybody confessed that they've never seen before. The bigotry that got to a stage whereby if you look clean and you smell nice, possibly you are not Yoruba, even if you are. That kind of bigotry that got people so blinded that they were pointing at their neighbor to be attacked because of election and all of that. So if Buhari, that didn't do up to this, couldn't keep Nigeria united, and we know where we are right now, where do you see Tinubu and then the people that are already disconnected with Nigeria, if he succeeds or escapes the judicial armor that some people are still hoping to save them? Where do you see Tinubu and Nigeria coming together with all this bigotry I just mentioned? In your view, David?
So, I mean, we're already, Tinubu, like I should specify, Tinubu already feels like he's bulletproof. He already feels like he's untouchable. I mean, how many people do you know who can have the kind of record that's, I mean, literally has something on public record stating that he has been involved in heroin trafficking in the US. It's official court document. And he's president. And the US government sent him official there's an article on the White House website saying congratulations to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu from the country that convicted him. So of course he feels like he's untouchable. Maybe he is. So what I can see in all of this is that the Nigerians themselves are the ones at this point. So if I don't know if you saw in the morning, I put up a thread on Twitter where I was basically appealing to Yoruba people specifically. I was basically appealing to them that please, Tinubu will come and go, right? But if because of him you allow yourself turn into Hutu and Tutsi, that problem will outlive him, and you will create a problem that will not go away for generations. But he will go, all because he had some short-term political interest in mind. So please, for your own sake, don't let this man create problem for you. You and these people that is trying to get you to see them as your enemy or whatever. Two of you have lived side by side for over 1,000 years in the same West African sub-region. You've never had a single armed conflict between yourselves. You've never fought before. There has never been there is no historical record of a single fight between any Igbo group and the Yoruba group. That's never happened. And bear in mind that the distance between Idanre in Ondo State and Onitsha in Anambra State is just about 150 kilometers. So you are not far, even historically, we're not far away from each other. And there's no instance in history where two of you butted heads, because fundamentally we're not even that different, right? If you draw the line back far enough, and you can prove this by analyzing the similarities in our languages and stuff. We are actually from a common ancestor. So this man that is creating this thing that didn't exist before, because that's the only thing that he understands: divide and conquer, divide and rule. I hope you know that this man is going to go. He doesn't even have that long left, objectively speaking. Right? This man cannot stand upright for 30 minutes without a steroid injection. It's not because of an old man that you're going to spoil your life. The reason I put up that thread was I've given up on the idea of Tinubu dialing down or stopping the things he has been doing. Why would he stop? It has worked for him all his life. And now that he's getting closer to the end of his life and he has gotten everything he ever wanted, he has been sworn in as president. That's his lifetime ambition. Why would he stop now? As far as he's concerned, that's just an endorsement of the fact that all his methods are actually the right methods because they work. So he's not going to stop. He's going to intensify everything he's doing. So I just put out a plea to Nigerians directly that please, for your own good and for our own collective good, don't let this man turn us into 1993, 1994 Rwanda, please, because this man is going to, as he has come like this, one day he too will go. Whether that is in a few weeks' time, whether that is in 4 years' time, whether that's in 8 years' time, we don't know. But he will definitely go at some point. So you don't want to spoil our collective destiny because of one man. At this point, that's all I can do. I can appeal directly to Nigerians and hope that they see the point.
It didn't go through or go over their head. Now, you know one thing people have said, David, which I picked, is the fact that some are saying that it is either the Nigerians are suffering from the PTSD of what APC represents and what Buhari did to them, or because according to them, they feel like, is it not too early to start being so worried of what Tinubu can become? Then it surprised everybody the first day. So, David, I'm putting that to you. In your view, do you think all this that we have actually kind of talked about, are they not coming from the PTSD of what Nigeria has done and Buhari? Is it not too early?
So the thing is that, as we say in the field of well, it's not a field, but if you're into making projections, not predictions, projections, your number one data set that is important to you is historical data, because it's from historical data that you project what is likely to happen. And we're not making predictions, we're not making guesses, we're just projecting what is likely to happen based on historical precedent. And the historical precedent is that, first of all, from Tinubu's own precedent as a politician and as an office holder from his time in Lagos, you can reasonably expect that so and so and so is what's going to happen. So what did he do when he was governor of Lagos? The first thing he did was that the organized crime network in Lagos, the agberos, the motor cartels, the people who sell weed, who later graduated to selling cocaine and other things, he brought all those low lives under a sort of semi-official umbrella. He brought them under the umbrella of government and made them part of government. He turned them into an avenue for basically creating a slush fund, right? Because when we say he collects informal taxes using these people, I think that's a very euphemistic term. That's a very euphemistic way of saying that he uses them to build up a slush fund that is not on government's books, because that's what it is, a slush fund, right? That's what he did when he was governor of Lagos. He built up a huge financial war chest in streets, extortion, right? And that money wasn't going into government coffers. Where was that money going? We don't know, but it was going somewhere where he had control of it. And with that war chest, he was able to build, starting from what was then the AD, and then later the AC, then the ACN. He built, at a point, people forget that Tinubu only had control of just one state in Nigeria, which was Lagos. And then slowly he built his way across the Southwest when it expanded into AC and ACN. And then after the 2011 elections, he made a deal with the CPC and ANPP. And then what now became the APC, he then went national. The money that did all of this was dirty money. So now that he has reached the center, why would he stop? So this isn't people scaremongering, or this isn't people who are traumatized or have PTSD because of Buhari. This is just making an educated projection based on historical data. And this is what is likely to happen. Now that he's in Abuja, he's simply going to reprise the templates from Lagos. You've already seen his daughter going and calling herself the Iyaloja General of Nigeria. I mean, she was the Iyaloja of Lagos, supposedly. Now she's calling herself Iyaloja General of Nigeria. We don't yet know what that means, but the intent is very clear that that's how these people see governance, that they should bring the Lagos templates and scale it up to the federal level. So the way is in Lagos, we have an LIRS, that's the Lagos Internal Revenue Service. But we then have a private company called Alpha Beta that does the work of the LIRS, that duplicates his work, and that actually collects the revenue. So they will simply scale that up to the federal level. So instead of FIRS doing the job it's equipped to do, we now start having private companies, or a private company controlled by Tinubu.
David.
Yeah.
I never thought of that too. So Alpha Beta can now be in charge of collecting revenue for Nigeria. They just have to design.
Yes. And it's a tech-based platform, so it doesn't take much to scale it up. Arguably, the infrastructure already exists. It's a touch of a button, and it can go national.
Wow. That seems like a nightmare. And like you said, projection, not prediction. Nobody's predicting here. Just putting 1 and 2 together, it's easier to say, okay, well, take a look, like you just did. David, it's been so wonderful having you. Even though I wish it could be so much longer, but I'm still going to steal you for a few more minutes anyway, okay? Meanwhile, I'm going to kind of give a shout out to everyone. I don't know, you streaming this as well, David? You could. Remember that.
Sorry?
Are you streaming this as well?
No, not. I'm just, I'm on the StreamYard.
Yeah, you could. In case of next time, all right, you can always plug in your channel as well, and we can do this together, all platforms, okay? Yeah. So one of the things that I am kind of interested in, although it is a rhetorical one, no, sure you get. But nevertheless, you are a journalist that can pretty much give a wider perspective, like more on it. And that question is that of the potential people that will be the either Senate president and the speaker, but that of the Senate president. You see, Akpabio, the same guy that is accused of plundering over 11 trillion naira at the NDDC, with nothing to show for it. Then you have a Kalu, ex-convict, that abracadabra Kali, Supreme Court freed him on technicality. Either of these two guys could be the Senate president of Nigeria. So does that mean that how Buhari had it, Tinubu is going to have that free fall? So Nigerians should never even like look forward to anybody making a bit of a push in all of this projection at all, like the Senate of Nigeria.
Well, so the thing is, if the Oga at the top, is a criminal, why wouldn't he surround himself with fellow criminals? Why would he surround himself with anybody who potentially could push back on his criminality someday? It doesn't make sense now. If you're an organized crime boss, if you're a mafia don, what you do is that the crime organization that you put together, you make sure that the people who are in key positions are people who are either loyal to you or people that you can blackmail, and you can control them using something you have over them. So why would Tinubu put some straight-laced, clean person in any of those positions? No, it would be an Akpabio. It would be an Ojo Okalu. That's what it makes sense if you look at it from his point of view. Tinubu is not a stupid person. Tinubu is a very rational person. It's just that he's a sociopath. He's ruthless and amoral. That's all. But if you can put yourself in his shoes for a minute, it makes perfect sense. It's very logical that that's what he does. It's for the same reason that a lot of the people in the political formation that he has around him, you have people like Femi Gbajabiamila, also an ex-convict. The Ogun State governor was in Dapo Abiodun, ex-convict. Ovie Omoagege, ex-convict. He surrounds himself with such people. It's not by accident, right? It's not by accident. It's part of the plan. You need to have people who understand your vision, who have as much to lose, if not more, and you will be loyal to you, or be afraid of you, and will do what you say. So it makes perfect sense that you would have such people around.
So what do you think about the argument of Wike, who said all he did is basically to protect the southern interests? Because if he didn't, by now, we would probably have Atiku, another Fulani man from northern Nigeria. So you've kind of, I don't know if you've avoided him for a long time. I've not really seen you speak about him and all that, right? So in this...
Wike is not... So I don't know whether Rivers State is operating under some kind of like ancestral curse or something, because 3 successive governors of Rivers State have all done the same thing. They've all made the same error 3 consecutive times. So in 2007, Peter Odili convinced himself that he will be president someday, or at least he vice president. And then he got himself into the mix, and they ended up getting absolutely nothing, and ended up basically completely falling out of the political reckoning altogether. Then Rotimi Amechi came into the picture, and Rotimi Amechi sold himself the exact same dream. He was going to be vice president and president. And at the end of the day, ended up being transport minister, and then They discarded him like a used pure water bag. And then Wike sold himself the exact same dream all over again, that he was going to be vice president, and they've done it again. So I feel as if, like, if you enter the government house in Rivers State as a governor, maybe like you need to visit whatever religious institution that you worship with, and they need to wash your head and pray for you, because like I don't know how the same mistake can happen 3 times in a row. And these are not dumb people. These are not unintelligent people. Wike is a lawyer, you know. So I don't know how he made such a relation. I don't know what he thought was. It's very clear if you've been following the news cycle, the way they strategically allowed the world to know that Peter Obi actually won the presidential election in Rivers State, and it was very crudely rigged by Wike. What they were doing by that, they leaked that news to Premium Times and to the BBC. What they did with that was to basically sacrifice Wike. They threw him under the bus. Nothing for him. So he can go around trying to justify himself that, oh, he was fighting for the South or whatever. He's fooling himself. Because if he was fighting for the South, we know who he would have pitched his tent with. And that person was Peter Obi. He didn't.
I'm talking about Peter Obi.
You know, good luck to him.
I have spent almost 2 hours, David. And we've not even made Peter Obi any point of conversation at all. And you know why I decided to keep that for the last, or to the last part of the conversation, is because not long ago, even those who are in the other camp, you know, publicly kind of confessed that if not for Peter Obi repeatedly telling people to calm down, calm down, calm down, there are people, the obedient, were capable enough of organizing and mobilizing themselves and occupying Nigeria from the 1st of March when Yakubu made that announcement. That is the only reason why a lot of people are kind of having, like, some people are not happy with that as well. But I think 2 days ago or yesterday, it was on one of these, I think it was Space, Twitter Space or so. And then he tweeted a lot as well when he said he knows that there are already planned action to come after him, come after those who are around him, in order to wear all his support base down with different accusations, attacks against his personality and all of that. Could this be a cry for help to what is still to come from Peter Obi, from your own perspective, David?
So from what I know of him, he's an individually tenacious person, very much so. So I don't think he's asking for anybody's pity or help. I don't think he needs it. I think he's perfectly capable of fighting his own
context. You know what I mean? Like just saying that, you guys, we are going to need ourselves.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to, because even within the Labour Party, the obedient movement, there were several people who were very displeased with the fact that he did not adopt a hard line toward the fraud that we all witnessed in real time, on between February 25 and when the results were announced. I remember I myself, I didn't tell him this. I didn't really tell anybody this, but I myself, inside, I was thinking within myself that, why are you taking this lying down? Why are you being so cool? Why are you being so calm about this? Because if I was the one, maybe that's why I'm not a politician. And if I was, I wouldn't be a very successful one. But if I was the one, and I know that I won this election, and then you've stolen it from me in this very crude, cartoonish way, like you are canceling zero and adding it here, like all that nonsense that we saw, they would have been held to pay, right? But obviously, Peter Obi has a much cooler head than I do, and I appreciate that too. Maybe that's what works at times like this. Maybe the establishment was expecting the kind of reaction that they would have given if they were in that. Because I know if it was a Tinubu that was in that situation and he won the election organically, and then somebody stole it from him, he would have called all his talks. There would have been a civil war. There would have been problems. People would have died, for sure. Because all those elections that Tinubu was in charge of between 1999 and 2019 in Lagos, every election, faithfully, people die in Lagos, both federal and state. Faithfully, every election, somebody must die. It's how it goes. So maybe, you know, he was trying to do something different. Maybe he was trying to do something new. And I've also been told, you know, very privileged information that the security establishment was on very high alert, specifically regarding him throughout the election period. Buhari and Tinubu were able to create that idea or create that narrative that Peter Obi is leading some sort of insurrectionist movement, so he should be subject to what other people are not subject to. So I guess in that context, I can kind of understand why he was reluctant to be seen to be instigating anything, because I know that if he had ever at any point come out, even the things that his VP candidate said, that Baba Ahmed, he could never say such things. I know if he had ever come out to say such thing, TV or whatever, there would have been a problem in Nigeria. There would have been a problem, and he would definitely have been arrested. And the fact that he would have been arrested would have caused another problem.
That's what I'm actually
problems. So I guess
I'm coming back to that of arrest, because what people said is that as much as he seems to be able to kind of communicate his sort of you know, apologies and all of that to his supporters, right? That people still feel like he's been too apologetic. Every now and then, apology, right? But they said no matter how much his outcome or how much calm he has in him, if by any means he got arrested, and the breaking news says he's been arrested, that he himself will not be able to control the aftermath. Do you believe that too?
Yes, I do. I think the obedient movement wasn't something that he himself was or is in control of. It's a movement that happened to coalesce around him. But I mean, it would exist even without him. So I think he was aware that these young people are uniquely energized and they're uniquely angry in a way that maybe we've never seen before in Nigeria's history. So if I do anything that sort of sets them off, or if I put them in a situation where they feel like they have to come out and defend my honor on the streets or something, somebody's going to die or people are going to die. And I don't think he wanted to have that on his conscience. I can completely understand him. However, having said that, what I will also say is that the Nigerian people themselves also need to be aware that at the end of the day, regardless of how much Peter wants to disrupt the political system, regardless of how much he would, in my opinion, he would be a good president, regardless of all of that, the fact is that at the end of the day, he's a successful business person within the existing Nigerian system. So from a purely personal point of view, it's not in his interest to call for people to come and grind that system to a halt. Peter Obi is not Bobby Wine from Uganda, right? He's not an activist, and he's never going to be. He's a billionaire businessman. People should always remember that. So the idea that at any point, regardless of however much it might have been good for his political aspirations, but the idea that he was ever at any point going to come out and advocate for people to engage in civil disobedience, I think that's fanciful. That's not his niche. That's not his thing. And it would never have been in his interest. I can understand that. So,
right. You know, one more thing I want to ask. This one is something that, like, as usual, as we have been doing, just your views on it generally, because there are happenings. A lot of them are connected to what is even happening in Nigeria generally. For 7 years, Wari pretended that he had good intention for clamping down on the agitators like Nnamdi Kanu, Sunday Igboho, only for the whole thing to end up like trophy hunting. Now, Buhari is gone. He's probably had no idea what to do with Nnamdi Kanu anymore. Yeah? He had no clue what he's going to do with Sunday Igboho anymore. Now, one of the things people are saying is that under this kind of where everybody is looking for justice here and there, knowing the history of this whole thing, do you think Tinubu will be inheriting Buhari's enemy or Buhari's fight in some context? And what do you think generally should happen? Mm-hmm.
I think from a Machiavellian point of view, politically, I think the smartest move politically would be for Tinubu to release Nnamdi Kanu. Because what that would do is twofold. First of all, it will completely disarm Nnamdi Kanu and the entire Biafra to completely disarm it. Right? The Biafra movements,
disarm it or de-escalate it. Sometimes, yeah.
De-escalate is what I mean. I'm using the word disarm in
you are a journalist and you know what that means. Once they quote you there, they can just cut it on and you know. But anyway, David, continue. Is released.
So I guess it's safe to say that the Biafran agitators probably view Tinubu as their natural enemy. Right? So if he then releases their prophets, instantly what that means is that he has done what Buhari do, which is that he released the person that means so much to them. And then that person himself can no longer have any locus standi and advocate for any kind of action against the government that released him. He can't do that. So I think that is one of those rare situations where it could actually end up being a win-win for everybody. If Tinubu ends up doing what you expect him to do, the political calculation I've just laid out, I expect him to do that. I think he will do that.
In the north, in the other context, what does that mean? Remembering that they had to announce his capture or his kidnapping from Kenya, they had to announce it even in Hausa, purposely for the Hausa audience. What would that mean?
The thing is, even the northerners are aware that, so they view the Buhari presidency as a northern presidency. So that's why it was so important to them that it was all about flexing muscle and showing who is in charge now. But I think the northern power bloc is aware that it's the Yoruba people's time in Abuja now, or at least that's how it's perceived. So they themselves, they are aware that they've had their turn and they have to either wait for another turn or at least pretend to wait for another turn. So I don't think it's necessarily going to cause that much of an issue. I don't think, first of all, just even the type of reaction that Nnamdi Kanu used to generate nationwide, I don't think it generates that kind of reaction anymore. I don't think it's that important anymore. Right? I think from the northern political establishment's point of view, Peter Obi is probably even more of a threat, or is considered more of a threat than Nnamdi Kanu, even though their aspirations are completely different. So at this point, I don't think there's anything to gain from keeping him in custody. So maybe they'll keep him for a month or two, and then one day you just hear that they've released him. They will find
that could be their own way of saying, "Okay, I'm ready to listen. I'm stretching my hand out, and let's see where this leads us or take us." Somehow, like you said,
they might even use that. They might even use that as their big. Because I know one thing about Tinubu is, in this game of divide and conquer that he does, when he has finished setting up two groups of people to fight each other, and he has sort of raised one group to see itself as the one that is oppressing the other one, the oppressed group, he will then go and quietly reach out to them through the back door and give them a bone as well, so that they will feel some gratitude to him, and that's how he maintains control of both. So I think that would be the bone that he would throw to what he considers to be the Igbo political movement. That, okay, I freed Nnamdi Kanu. I think that's what he would do, because that's how he thinks. Again, if you think as a ruthless, logical, amoral person, it makes sense.
Now, finally, David, I've enjoyed my night so far, and then it's been quite, informative, I'll say. I enjoyed it, and we're coming to the end of the charts. So, David, one powerful tool that has really rattled Nigeria and the establishments, that even in my own lifetime, I can attest to it, you too, is the tool of what the social media is and the power that it wields. And it's one area that they have not been able to dominate or control. And they have been looking for ways and means and all of that if they could. Some people are now saying, Nigeria may kiss Twitter goodbye soon. So with other social media and all of that, we know the last time they did it and what that meant for those who are like younger entrepreneurs all over the place. We know what that meant for so many people and their customers and all of that. So do you see that happen again? Like, David, right? Because the more things cause, people are going to be reacting. We're never going to stop reacting. And it seems that, you know, they believe, even the Nigeria judiciary, Supreme Court said they are being bullied by social media. So do you think Nigerians will have to kiss Twitter goodbye first soon? Or maybe they will just have to, like, you know, live up to it, and then they match us up in this whole thing? Like, your view?
I mean, I hope they don't. I don't see the significant benefits in doing so. But is Tinubu the kind of person who would do so? Yes, he absolutely is, especially now that he has absolute power. He's probably the kind of person who would do that. So I hope they don't. But at the same time, I'll be lying said that I don't see it happening. I just hope they don't, and I hope they also understand that even if they do, I mean, even during the so-called Twitter ban in 2021, Nigerians were still on Twitter because there's such a thing as a VPN, right? There are free VPNs. So at the end of the day, what difference does it really make? You know, you will keep a few 100,000 people who don't know any better or who are not tech savvy enough off social media, but the bulk of the user base will still be there. And then you will not be able to control or monitor it because you would have basically locked yourself out of it, which is what happened in 2021. So I hope they have smarter people around them this time, because I feel like the Buhari administration was very sort of testosterone driven. So even the announcement of the Twitter ban, it was so obvious that it was in response to the president's temper tantrum. It was so obvious then. So I want to believe that Tinubu's people are a bit more, especially when it comes to foreign optics, being that these are people that are obsessed with how they look in international media. I want to believe that they're a bit more savvy. So
and to go that route. Well, that's quite fair, David, because that's one fair judgment you just gave them right now, which is giving them a benefit of doubt, Abi. Or you are not ruling it out in case.
So it's not even a case of not ruling it out. What I'm saying is, they will try and do something about it, but it might not be something as simplistic as a ban. So if you notice, shortly before the inauguration, I forget who it was. I think it was Festus Keyamo was making noises about enhanced regulation of social media. It was actually making about enhanced regulations, and then sometime yesterday or the day before, Muyiwa Adejobi, that's the police force PRO, he tweeted a message, and in that message there were 4 pictures from the force headquarters in Abuja, and he was talking about how the police now has the resources and the capability to dominate the social media space. So, and if you look at the pictures, there's like a whiteboard, like a computer screen is projected, and you can tell that there's a platform that they are using to analyze basically the web footprint of a particular email address. So that email address could be linked to a Twitter handle that tweeted something. So then they go and do a deep web analysis of the email address linked to it, and they try and figure out who is behind that email address so that they can go and arrest the person. I think they're going to be doing more of that. I think they're going to start picking people up. So that instead of just coming out and banning social media, which is it's very crude and which creates bad international headlines, they will instead start picking people up one by one. And then instead of saying that we're arresting this person for what he posted on social media, they'll find one innocuous language to use. But so that people understand that it's because of what they're posting on social media that they're getting arrested, but you can't prove it. So what that does is that it then creates a chilling effect. So people start to censor themselves. So I think that's what they will do. They might not go out and ban it altogether, but they will try and strike fear into people's hearts, basically, to try and make them start self-censoring.
David, thank you so much. Yeah, I kind of would want us to continue, but sometimes short and brief and sweet keeps the quality. Baba, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all the contribution tonight as well. So, but the obedient who happen to be watching us tonight, right? I don't know if that's your thing, right? You might want to say one or two things to just everyone when it comes to, I don't know if it's an advice or something, right? You just be like, well,
I mean, I'm not some kind of senior prefect in the obedient movement or anything. I'm just a random guy. But what I will say is, basically, when I fled Nigeria in November 2020, right? And by February 2021, my life had fallen apart completely. I'd run through all my life savings. I was on the verge of, I was very lonely. My relationship had fallen apart. My then girlfriend couldn't deal with all the upheaval, and she moved on to someone else really, really quickly. And I was in a very bad space psychologically. And one guy whose name I won't mention, but he's somebody who actually left Nigeria around the same time that I did for a similar reason. He told me that, and this thing he told me that's stuck in my mind ever since, and I've never forgotten it. He said, before you allow yourself fall into despair, make sure that you've exhausted all your available options first. So make sure you've gone through every opportunity in front of you first, and you've exhausted all your options first before you allow yourself to fall into despair. So in other words, while there's still an option, or while there's still some kind of avenue that potentially could lead to a positive outcome in front of you, focus on that first. So before you get to the part of giving up and weeping and wearing sackcloth, first for what is possible first. So there's an ongoing legal process, there's an ongoing judicial process. Are the courts independent enough? We don't know. We'll see. But as far as we're concerned, there's a legal process going on. So follow the legal process through to its logical conclusion first, and then we'll take it from there.
I like that. Thank you so much, David. And yeah, you have a wonderful evening. Okay.
You too.
So this is where we're going to draw the curtains tonight. I would have probably taken a course, but let's go and sort of sleep on that. All we have heard tonight is not to scare you; it is to prepare us. It is going to be very rough. Yeah, they are not going to tell you, to get ready. It's going to be dropping every now and then, and lives will be at stake too. So thank you so much too for your time, for joining me. If this is your first time of joining Maiyegun, you can like this broadcast, share it if you haven't already, and subscribe too, because I will see you some other time when we have our usual. So tomorrow we may have our People's Parliament tomorrow, where you would have a chance of sharing your own personal kind of view on all of this. At the end of the day, now all of us go stitch up the breakfast. But it's good to have an idea of what is coming than to be surprised like you are currently facing. But I wish you all the best. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I will see you some other time. Until then, stay safe, and good night.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun ti dé o, ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Bó bá ṣe eré, àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré, wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun Diary, Diary Politico.
Maiyegun Diary, Maiyegun number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun Diary.
sẹ́ o kẹgbọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
MaiyegunDiary na him be number one.
àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ o làwa mọ̀ tó dódòdó.
MaiyegunDiary na him be number one.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
wọ́n bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
kí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
ọlọ́pàá tí ń darí bá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
òkúra olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Maiyegun ti dé. gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀ oníkan ṣáàtì ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o àyè.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn rà.